Coming up, more than 160 people had been killed and at least 320 injured in an earthquake in Indonesia. Rescuers continue their search efforts as many are still stuck underneath the rubble. At least 25 survivors are known to be trapped. Despite the UN Security Council holding an emergency meeting in response to North Korea's recent firing of missiles, the members failed to agree on a resolution as China and Russia use their vetoes. Plus, Day 2 of the World Cup 2022 in Qatar sees England cruise past Iran, while the other match in Group B between the U.S. and Wales ends in a tie. The Netherlands also get their first win. What else is going on at the biggest event in football? We have the latest. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. We start out with a deadly earthquake that hit Indonesia on Monday. A magnitude 5.6 earthquake in Indonesia's West Java province reportedly killed at least 160 people. The number of casualties may rise as there are residents still trapped in isolated places, and some regions are still reporting power outages and communication disruptions too. Our Lee Daeon leads us off this morning.
A powerful earthquake hit Indonesia's West Java province on Monday, a region home to almost 3 million people. The epicenter of the 5.6 magnitude quake, which had a depth of 10 kilometers, was close to the town of Cianjur in West Java, about 75 kilometers southeast of the country's capital, Jakarta. According to the governor of West Java, Ridwan Kamil, more than 160 people were killed and at least 320 were injured, while hundreds of victims are being treated at makeshift medical facilities in a hospital parking lot. He added that the death toll is likely to rise due to a large number of collapsed buildings. Rescuers are currently searching for survivors trapped under the rubble amid a series of aftershocks, with reports saying there are at least 25 survivors trapped beneath collapsed buildings.
When it happened, I was sleeping, but all of a sudden my bed shook and I ran outside. Houses had collapsed.
One of my kids is still missing. My house is flattened. Good God. 2 of my kids survived and I dug them up. 2 others I brought here and 1 is still missing.
Indonesia's disaster mitigation agency, meanwhile, put the death toll as 62. The agency said more than 2,200 houses have been damaged and more than 5,300 people have been displaced. Surrounding areas were also affected, including the city of Bogor, which reported damage to over 500 houses. Authorities said some regions are still suffering from power outages and communication disruptions. Officials are still working to determine the full extent of the damage caused by the quake, while also constructing shelters for the victims. It also added that there seems to be no risk of tsunami. Lee Daeon, Arirang News.
The United Nations Security Council has held an...
It says Sunday that the video footage circulated on Russian social media allegedly shows Ukrainian forces opening fire on Russian troops who may have been trying to surrender. Videos of the alleged shooting emerged between November 12th and 17th as Kyiv recaptured parts of the country's eastern Luhansk region. Russia jumped to accuse Ukraine of committing war crimes, with its authorities saying that it has opened a criminal investigation. Moscow's foreign ministry demanded an international investigation on what it called a, quote, merciless and a shocking shooting. To this, however, Ukraine's Commissioner for Human Rights dismissed the accusation, stressing that returning fire is not a war crime. The official added that Russian soldiers had feigned surrender and subsequently one of them opened fire. A spokesperson for the UN Human Rights Office says the global body was looking into the footage and called for the allegations to be investigated promptly and in full scale. Against this backdrop, more than 8,300 civilians, including over 400 children, are believed to have died since Russia's invasion of Ukraine early this year. That's according to investigators in Kyiv, who say the actual number of victims is likely to be much higher, as Ukraine does not yet have access to some areas of the country being occupied by Russia. Kim San, Arirang News.
NASA's Orion spacecraft skirted past the moon on Monday, making it the first human-rated craft to reach the moon since the last Apollo mission back in 1972. It has passed 130 kilometers above the lunar surface. The unmanned spacecraft has been traveling toward the moon since Wednesday, when it was launched as part of the Artemis One mission. CNN hailed the flyover as a monumental achievement in the mission designed to test NASA's ability to return astronauts to the moon one day. Orion's journey will last for 20 more days. Now, today is Kimchi Day. The day has been designated to raise awareness of the benefits of the Korean traditional dish, and it's not only celebrated in South Korea, but in the U.S. as well. California, Virginia, and the District of Columbia have all designated November 22nd as Kimchi Day as well, showing the popularity of kimchi in the country. In fact, according to South Korean Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Administration, kimchi exports to the U.S. have risen tenfold since 2011, when an FTA between the two countries took effect. So let's connect with Professor Song Si-young of Chungang University to break this down. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning to you.
Now, the first question is, are food exports, especially the ones with the level of processing that kimchi requires, a profitable business for a country?
As far as I'm concerned, I do not think so. The reason is basically as you mentioned, even though recently the K-food, such as, for example, the kimchi has been very popular across the world. However, the percentage out of the total GDP of our country, so the agriculture and the fishery and the food has taken just less than 2% of the total GDP. So to that regard, I can say that it does not have such a substantial importance in total GDP. But however, this agriculture, fishery, and food is very important as a staple food because we rely our daily life of dietary much on the rice and kimchi. That is the two most important ingredients and the staple food for the past several more than 1,000 years ago. Yeah.
Right. And but speaking of exports, with a stronger U.S. dollar compared to the Korean won, maybe kimchi exports could kind of benefit from it.
But so far as according to the data, because the kimchi export has recorded surplus in the year of 2021, but this year and the first since 2011, that the net surplus or the balance of trade has recorded always in deficit for the past 10 years, and only the year of 2021 we have recorded a positive surplus in terms of kimchi only. The overall the agriculture, food, and the fishery has always recorded the deficit in terms of the net export, which is export subtracted by the import. So to that regards, the exports, even though it's gaining some momentum, but this year we have experienced such a fluctuation of exchange rate against the U.S. dollars and also against the Japanese yen. That is caused a serious, very huge influence over the balance of trade of the kimchi.
Right, and I just want to touch another aspect of the exports where it's not about the money either, right? Like when you export certain traditional items like that, it brings more, effect than just the numbers, right?
I think actually the kimchi is, of course, I have mentioned that work as a staple food and is gaining popularity across the world, and that is mainly due to the K culture, and the K food becomes very known and becomes known to the worldwide, and also we have experienced a very big progress in terms of GDP, but also during the period of coronavirus, we have shown our capabilities and our leading position in terms of how to deal with the coronavirus worldwide. So that is because the Korean food has gained also popularity. But as I mentioned earlier, that the exchange rate, particularly against the Japanese yen, has become turns out to be an obstacle barrier to the kimchi export, because the largest import country of kimchi around the world is actually Japan and the United States, and then Hong Kong. But recently, in this year, I have seen that there is some gaining of exports to Netherlands and England has become. So that is a very good signal to the prospect of the K-food, particularly the kimchi. But as you know, the exchange rate has been, even though we became very weak, I mean, depreciation of Korea-U.S. against the United States dollars, but that is a global phenomenon. And against the Japanese yen, actually, we become stronger. So which means we have experienced some appreciation. That's why the import from Japan has been reduced very much. And also this year, in September, the cabbage price has shown very expensive. However, due to some warm weather in October, we have seen that the cabbage produce and sales in the domestic market has been increased quite a lot. And so that's why we have seen a little bit in domestic market, the consumption and production of kimchi has been a little bit higher. But in terms of the balance of trade, we have experienced we are going to experience the export deficit in terms of balance of trade in kimchi.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your insights today. We can always talk about kimchi all day, as it's our favorite food. But hope you have a great day, Professor.
Yeah, thank you, and my pleasure. Yeah.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley, standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Good morning.
Good morning, Doyon.
The FIFA 2022 World Cup kicked off in Qatar this week. Let's start with Group B's opening match, where England faced off against Iran in a protest-laden fixture.
Well, that's right. England got their World Cup off to the perfect start, or near perfect start, on Monday by beating Iran by 6-2. Now, England scored 3 goals in the first half and 3 in the second, with Iran also scoring twice in the second half. But the match, which kicked off at 10 p.m. local time at the Khalifa International Stadium, came amid protests and ticketing issues. Hundreds of matchgoers missed the start of the match due to the issues with FIFA's ticket app. Now, Iran's national team seemingly showed support for protesters back home, with players refusing to sing the national anthem. Meanwhile, some Iranian fans managed to sneak in Persian flags that predate the 1979 Iranian Revolution and waved them in defiance of their government. Moving on to the other 2 matches from last night. The Netherlands emerged victorious in their first fixture of the tournament against Senegal on Monday local time at Altamama Stadium. Late goals by Cody Gakpo and Davy Klaassen in the 84th and 99th minutes of the game saw the Dutch team win the match. Meanwhile, at Orion Stadium, despite taking the lead in the 34th minute with a goal by Timothy Weah, the USA ended up drawing 1-1 with Wales. The Welsh levelled the score with a penalty by Gareth Bale in the 82nd minute. Now, 7 European national teams at the World Cup reversed their decision on Monday for their captains to wear One Love LGBTQ+ armbands. This decision comes after FIFA threatened on-field punishments to players wearing the bands. Instead of paying a fine, FIFA said players would get an immediate yellow card, putting them at risk of being sent off. The bans are a message against LGBTQ+ discrimination and are thought to be aimed at the host country Qatar's strict anti-LGBTQ laws. The decision saw England captain Harry Kane wear the FIFA-approved no discrimination armband instead. The England team also took the knee for a brief moment before the start of their match against Iran. And finally, we take a quick look at some of the upcoming World Cup fixtures. 4 matches are kicking off on Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning Korean time, including the opening fixtures in Groups C and D. Getting the ball rolling in Group C is Argentina versus Saudi Arabia at 7 p.m. Denmark will take on Tunisia in the Group D opener at 10 p.m. Mexico and Poland in Group C will kick off at 1 a.m., followed by France v Australia in Group D at 4 a.m.
Good morning. It's also today the second winter term, and usually around this time we receive the first snow of the season. But due to that exceptionally warm temperatures, it's going to rain instead. The East Coast will see more rain due to easterly winds, and the east of Gangwon-do province could see up to 80 millimeters from this morning. The rest of the country could see 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall from late this afternoon. And most areas are under cloudy skies, and central regions are even covered with a mix of thick fog and dust. Afternoon highs will be 1 to 5 degrees Celsius lower than yesterday, but still hovering way above the norms in most parts. Seoul and Daegu both topping out at 15 degrees Celsius. Then Gwangju will see a high of 17, Jeju at 20 degrees Celsius. Please keep an umbrella handy. Rain will pick up tonight on the East Coast, falling at 20 millimeters an hour. Then rain will let up early tomorrow morning in most parts, and unlike last time, this round of rain will not result in chilly air being brought to the country. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
And that wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for our Wednesday's edition at the same time. Please stay with us for more updates throughout the day. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are, and take care.
my attitude. Attitude, that's my attitude. Attitude, 빠져들지 이 세계로 널 초대해. Take an attitude. That's my attitude. Attitude, that's my attitude. Attitude, 여유롭게 시작됐어 바로 다해. 너는 내게 overdose, dose.
Hello, you're watching Global Insight, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. Now, we're living in times of rapid change and lingering uncertainty, especially after emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic and now dealing with economic troubles and geopolitical instability. The outlook on the global business environment seems rather bleak. The heydays of globalization seem long gone, with workers also pessimistic about finding new job opportunities. But can we turn this crisis into new opportunities? To answer this question, we have the pleasure of inviting Bob Cahill, Chief Executive Officer at GP, who joins us in our studio in Seoul today. A very warm welcome to you, Bob. Thank you so much for coming all the way here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right, it's lovely to see you. And well, throughout your career, you've been known to launch some very innovative startups in America with very successful exit strategies. And well, first of all, I want to ask you, what's your secret?
Well, thank you. I think I'm very passionate about software and technology and how it can enable businesses to grow faster. And when you have that passion, that really leads to success. And so that's sort of been really the secret is leveraging software and technology to either improve society or move business forward at a very rapid pace.
I see. And well, during these times, I mean, we're seeing just spiking inflation, economic uncertainty, and basically every country, and geopolitical uncertainty as well, trade wars. During these times, it seems rather difficult for companies to keep on expanding and, looking at interests over their own borders. But, so the outlook really seems rather pessimistic. But I believe you see some, light on the end of the tunnel, and you recently released a report regarding this. So
Absolutely.
if you could elaborate on that.
Sure. Well, I've been through a few of these cycles in my career, and certainly we're facing some headwinds, or anticipating headwinds as much as reality right now. But what I found is the best companies are bunkering in the near term and kind of, being more thoughtful about their investments in hiring. But the best companies tend to be looking past the current cycle into the future. And our recent 2022 CFO survey sort of validated that, if you will. And so we talked to them about how they're planning both near and long term. And certainly in the long term, I think this survey is among companies with over 100 million in annual revenue. And in that survey, amongst in APAC, 77% of the CFOs surveyed were anticipating significant investment in international expansion as they're doing their planning. And of that same cohort of surveyed CFOs, 92% that their talent strategy was going to revolve around work from anywhere strategies.
I see. And well, one of the perks of globalization that we saw in the past was really the free flow of not only goods and capital, but people, really, and people finding new job opportunities abroad, finding talent from abroad. But since the global financial crisis, we've seen sort of a backlash against globalization, and more countries, their governments really encouraging companies to produce domestically and also hire locally. And well, then how are you finding solutions to this kind of sentiment, I suppose, that's really worsened with lockdowns we had over the pandemic?
Absolutely. Well, we actually found in our business that the lockdown became a bit of an accelerant in some ways for how you look at finding talent, because remote work forced CEOs to, because they couldn't expand or bring people into the country or use expat strategies, that they were accepting remote work and as a new model. What we find in our business, though, is actually very beneficial for a model with an employer of record model like we have in a platform, because it allows, it's actually bi-directional in that we're helping countries that want to expand, for example, want to expand into Korea. We can help them find talent in Korea, but also at the same time, Korean companies that are looking to expand their market share use the same platform on an outbound basis. So really, it becomes a win-win in that you're getting a good balance of both internal and external talent, talent and growth.
And well, to turn your attention to what's happening locally here in South Korea, the South Korean job market, there's been a general mismatch of jobs and workers available, and there's just been a chronic level of youth unemployment. And what kind of opportunities do you see for South Korea's labour market?
Absolutely. Well, it a little bit goes back to that matching is very interesting, because if a Korean company is looking to hire and they can't quite find the match of the talent in the talent pool, they can look internationally, and similar companies that are looking to go into can find that talent. So if the match is simply domestic, it's a little harder, but when you sort of broaden it to the whole globe, is a much better match. Additionally, we're seeing that the ways people are working is changing. So where you might have seen very traditional salaried individual in big corporations, a lot of talented individuals want more flexibility, more of the gig worker economy. And actually, we've actually developed a module within our platform that allows for that. So if you want a traditional employment contract, we certainly can do that. If you want to work on a contractor model, we can do the same thing, help match up employers to talent around the world.
I see. And well, how do you see South Korea's potential as a future sort of business hub in Asia? I mean, what brings your interest to this country?
Absolutely. This is a very exciting country to work in. You've got a really well-educated, tech-savvy workforce. The government, a lot of FDI programs. So we're seeing a lot of interest from our Korean customers, to use our platform outbound. But a lot of countries, including America and Australia, want to come here to hire talent. So we think the future is quite bright.
Right, so one of the biggest complaints from foreign businesses in Korea, and I imagine every country, is really the sort of ambiguity around regulations. How do you keep up with them, and how do you really read the fine print? It's really hard sometimes. And how are you helping companies kind of overcome these issues?
Actually, the GP platform is that's really a core part of what we do, is that successful companies, when they want to expand internationally, it's speed to market, it's go-to-market strategies, and waiting to deal with compliance, and it's really quite daunting what you need to deal with setting up an entity and getting payroll registrations and compliant contracts and benefits, and there's so many unique rules, regulations, policies, procedures, and then just cultural norms in every single market. So for companies that want to expand, they don't want to spend time in all of that. They want to go and win the market ahead of their competition. So our platform does all of that for them, all digitally. So really, they don't have to do anything. We've already set up the entities. We have all these. We have our banking and payroll and fintech and digital contracts all turnkey. So all they have to do is, and now they can hire someone in a matter of days and get up and running, rather than spending months and even up to a year, setting up an entity to get ready to go to market. And in today's environment, that just takes too long. So that's one of the big benefits we bring to our customers.
I see. And many cities, countries are looking to cities like Boston, Pittsburgh, and the Silicon Valley, of course, as models for innovation, really. And in your opinion, what makes a good startup ecosystem?
Certainly ecosystem. I think a lot of collaboration between the private sector, the governments, and the university systems. We found that's been very successful, and there's a good example. Cities like Boston, Pittsburgh, Austin, Texas, and Northern California do a lot of this. So you've got, with those all working in lockstep, you find that there's a good matchup of talent and education and investment in the private sector. And so that leads to rapid innovation, which of course leads to great business opportunity for all those parties.
Right, I see. So it's a lot of coming together, I suppose, for talent, local talent pool, businesses willing to invest, and also these very entrepreneurial people coming from universities. So a good mix of things.
Absolutely.
And what would you say is the most important part?
Well, I certainly think that, from innovation perspective, the investment community funds a lot of this. So, a robust venture capital infrastructure is critical, but you really do need cooperation from the government, and cooperation, whether it's be tax or grants, or just lack of tax and things of that nature, and university programs that are actually bringing skills that the future work needs. So, whether that's software development or moving into new innovations around blockchain or artificial intelligence, things of that nature. So, kind of investing ahead of the curve in talent is critical.
Right, I see. Well, we want to talk about some of the trends that we've seen in the global business environment as well. And during the stretch of the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw quite a lot of remote and IT solutions to, well, basically everyday work and, how we work as well. And what are some, what's your outlook on all this digitalization that we're seeing?
Absolutely. I think for us, we certainly found that while COVID was a terrible human tragedy, it was an accelerant for the ways of working and using technology to access talent around the world. So certainly from a technology perspective, our platforms like it, EOR platforms, allow companies to find great talent all over the world. But we're seeing lots of other tools. You look at companies that with like Zoom and things like that, and there's collaborative software and digital whiteboarding. So we've seen a lot of innovation around this area, and it was probably accelerated by COVID, but it's certainly the permanent, we believe to be the permanent way that people, it's going back to the traditional model, puts you at, we believe, at a competitive disadvantage. So I think we'll continue to see innovation around remote work as the core.
I see. And but the thing is, though, with digitalization, it's sort of causing quite a number of workers, especially those in Gen Z and millennials, they're losing their sense of belonging in the workplace. They feel a little isolated, they're losing motivation. And we're seeing this phenomenon that's called quiet quitting. I mean, what do you make of this kind of trend?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of facts and myth in all of that. Ultimately, we believe that, the best companies are going to focus on culture, and be able to manage in it's a new environment. The old ways of working are gone. So I think companies need to adapt to this new world order. If you engage your employees in a meaningful way and have a culture of inclusiveness, I think you'll find that people are, the quiet quitting thing really goes away, because people are motivated, and if they share passion for your mission. But we also have to adjust. There's not going to be one perfect answer for every company. There's going to be completely remote, like Globalization Partners has chosen to do, to partially back in the office, to full back in the office. But ultimately, we believe that the best companies are going to need to access the best talent wherever it may be. So it's really an investment in your culture and engaging your employees. I will say the one other interesting thing that came out of all of this is there's lots of studies out there that indicate that companies who have diversity in their workforce perform significantly better. And what's interesting about remote work, or in having implicitly you get a diverse workforce, which therefore kind of gives you an advantage.
I see. Before we go, if you could provide us some more details about how you're using artificial intelligence and the latest technology to really help companies and workers match together, come together.
Absolutely. So we actually focus a lot on this and providing our customers data analytics, using AI to partially to match employees to jobs. We're also doing things like intelligent contracts and things like that, so we can actually have customers from around the world be able to employ in another jurisdiction fully compliantly with a digital contract that doesn't involve humans or lawyers. And it actually, we have things that match up language, culture, regulations, compliance. So these are the kind of innovations that we're putting in place that allow ultimately our customers to get to find talent and employ talent, but very quickly. And we talk a lot about time to value is a big concept for us that our customers really love.
All right, and on that note, thank you for making time for us today. And it was an honor to have you on our show. Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, a big thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Global Insight runs Monday through Friday here in South Korea at 9:30 a.m. Do tune in, join us when you can. Have a great day wherever you are. Goodbye.